Gardeners often see grass clippings as free fertilizer, piling them into raised beds or scattering them thick across the soil. They look green and full of life, so it feels natural to assume they will feed the soil and attract worms. But used incorrectly, clippings do the exact opposite. They can heat up, suffocate soil, and drive worms away or even kill them. Understanding why this happens and how to correct it is one of the most important steps in building living soil that lasts. Grass clippings cause suffocation and heat when piled too thick. Fresh clippings are extremely high in nitrogen and water. When spread in thick layers, anything more than about an inch, they collapse and compact quickly. This creates a dense, airtight seal on top of the soil. Without oxygen, decomposition shifts into anaerobic activity, which produces acids and foul-smelling byproducts that repel or kill worms. The other hidden danger is temperature. A large layer of clippings can heat up in the same way that a compost pile does, sometimes reaching 140 degrees Fahrenheit at the surface. For worms living in the top few inches of soil, this is lethal. Instead of finding food, they find a suffocating, overheated mat that drives them deeper or leaves them dead near the surface. Thin mulching is the safest way to use grass clippings. The first correction is to control thickness. Grass clippings should only be added in thin layers, about half an inch deep at most. When they are spread lightly, they dry into a soft mulch that still allows air and water to pass through. This creates a microclimate worms can move into, feeding safely as the clippings break down. In practice, this means spreading after mowing as if you were dusting the soil, not blanketing it. After a week or two, once the clippings have dried and begun to decompose, you can add another light layer. Over time, this repeated feeding builds organic matter without suffocation or overheating. The second correction is to pair nitrogen-rich clippings with carbon-rich materials. A safe ratio is 2 parts carbon to 1 part grass. Carbon can be shredded leaves, dried straw, brown paper, or even cardboard torn into strips. Mixing these with clippings prevents matting, balances nitrogen, and keeps worms safe. For example, if you collect a bucket of fresh clippings, mix in 2 buckets of dried leaves before spreading. This blend decomposes slowly and evenly, producing the kind of steady microbial activity that worms seek out. Gardeners who maintain leaf piles or save shredded cardboard always have a ready supply of carbon to balance their clippings. For larger amounts of clippings, surface spreading is not enough. A more effective method is shallow trenching. Dig a trench about 6 inches deep along the bed, lay down 2 inches of clippings, then cover with soil. This keeps the grass from overheating at the surface while locking nutrients underground where worms naturally tunnel. In a 4-foot wide raised bed, 2 parallel trenches filled this way will supply food for weeks. The soil cover moderates decomposition, stops odors, and encourages worm activity as they move in and out of the buried material. By the following season, the trench zones are transformed into dark, worm-rich compost channels. Grass clippings are safest to use during the warm growing months when decomposition is rapid. In spring and summer, worms are active and microbial breakdown is steady. In late fall, clippings left on the surface stay wet and cold, turning slimy. This slime film suffocates worms just as badly as summer overheating. The solution is to either bury clippings in trenches before winter or mix them heavily with carbon and apply only in thin doses. Moisture balance also matters. If a layer of clippings dries out completely, it becomes tough and slow to break down. If it stays constantly wet, it turns sour. Worms thrive when clippings are moist but not waterlogged, so irrigation or rainfall should be managed accordingly. Thin layers solve most of these problems by allowing clippings to dry between rains and break down in stages. The lesson is that grass clippings are not the enemy. The way they are applied determines whether they harm or help. Thick mats suffocate, heat and sour the soil. Thin layers, carbon mixtures and shallow trenches transform them into a steady worm food source. By adjusting thickness, ratios and timing, gardeners can turn free lawn waste into one of the most powerful soil builders available. Grass clippings are one of the most misunderstood garden inputs. Added wrongly, they drive worms away and leave beds lifeless. Used with care, they invite worms to multiply, enrich soil with castings, and keep raised beds fertile for years. The difference is not the material itself, but how it is managed. Spread thin, mixed with carbon, or buried in trenches, clippings are transformed into safe and lasting worm food. If this guide helped you correct mistakes and rethink how you use grass clippings, subscribe to Soil Doctor and share this with other gardeners. Building soil life is about working with the right ratios and methods, and every gardener deserves to know how to turn free materials into worm-rich soil.